The fastest way to become invisible is to always be available. At first, they thank you. Then they get used to you. And eventually, they stop seeing you at all. They stop asking if you are tired. They stop asking if you have time. They stop remembering that you have a life of your own. And when kindness is given too easily, people can stop seeing it as a gift. They begin to treat it like something they are entitled to. This is the story of Elias, a man who was always there for everyone in a small mountain town, until the day he could no longer be there for anyone. And that day taught the entire town a lesson they would never forget. Elias lived in a quiet town at the foot of a mountain. He was not rich, he was not powerful, and he was not the most important man in town. But everyone knew his name. Because whenever something went wrong, people looked for Elias. If a fence broke, they called Elias. If a wagon got stuck in the mud, they called Elias. If a woodshed collapsed after a strong wind, they called Elias. If there was heavy work nobody wanted to do, they called Elias. And Elias always came. He did not complain. He did not refuse. He simply put his own work aside and went to help someone else. Sometimes, after helping everyone else, Elias would come home and find his own work still waiting in the dark. His own fence still needed repair. His own firewood still needed stacking. His own tired body still needed rest. But he told himself it was worth it. At first, helping made him feel good. He liked feeling needed. Every thank you made him believe that he mattered. But over time, something began to change. People stopped asking, "Elias, could you help me?" Instead, they simply said, "Call Elias." 6s. Call Elias, he'll do it. It was a simple sentence, but it showed how much things had changed. Elias's help was no longer seen as something valuable. It had become a habit for the entire town. If a fence broke, they did not try to fix it. If a wagon got stuck, they did not try to push it together. If a woodshed collapsed, they did not make a plan to rebuild it. They just waited for Elias. And Elias kept saying yes, even when he was tired. He kept smiling, even when all he wanted was to rest. He thought he was helping people, but without realizing it, he was teaching them something dangerous. That someone else would always come and solve their problems for them. If you have ever felt taken for granted for being too helpful, comment 1. Then one cold winter morning, someone knocked on Elias's door again. He heard the sound from his bed. One knock, then another, then his name. "Elias?" He tried to sit up, but this time, his body would not obey. A fever had taken the strength from him. His hands were shaking. His breathing felt heavy. For the first time in years, Elias could not leave his house to help anyone. The news spread quickly through the town. At first, a few people came to visit. Someone left bread by his door. Someone asked if he was feeling better. Someone wished him a quick recovery. Elias lay in bed and felt a quiet warmth in his heart. He thought, maybe now people finally understand how much I have done for them. But after only a few days, the knocks on his door became fewer. Then they stopped. Elias's house grew quiet. No one called his name. No one stood at his door asking for help. No one came rushing to him the way they used to. Him the way they used to. From his small window, Elias looked out at the road. The wagon was still stuck near the edge of the path. The broken fence still leaned in the wind. The collapsed woodshed still lay scattered behind his neighbor's house. Before, Elias would have gotten up immediately. But now, all he could do was lie there and watch. At first, it hurt him. He had believed the town needed him. He had believed that without him, everything would fall apart. But then, something unexpected happened. The owner of the wagon stepped outside and bent down beside the wheel stuck in the mud. He struggled for a long time. He made mistakes. He got frustrated. He had to stop and catch his breath. But then he called two neighbors over. Together, they pushed. Together, they pulled. And finally, the wagon came free. The next day, one neighbor repaired the fence in front of his own yard. He was slow. He was clumsy. But one wooden board after another went back into place. At the end of the road, two brothers, who had always waited for Elias, began rebuilding the fallen woodshed. They got tired. They complained. They had to stop more than once. But eventually, the woodshed stood again. Elias watched it all through the window, and he was stunned. The town did not fall apart without him. Things did not happen as quickly as when he did them. They were not as neat as when he did them, but people still found a way. In that moment, Elias realized a painful truth. Maybe they were not as helpless as he had thought. Maybe they had simply never been forced to try. Maybe his endless help had made them forget their own strength. He thought he was helping. But sometimes, too much help becomes a way of holding people back from learning for themselves. A few weeks later, Elias recovered. He stepped outside and walked through the town. Life had continued. The wagon was moving again. The fence had been repaired. The woodshed had been rebuilt. But something was different. When people saw Elias, they still smiled. But this time, they did not say, "Elias will do it." They asked, "Elias, do you have time?" It was only one question, but to Elias, it meant everything. For the first time in years, they remembered that he had time of his own. He had limits. He had the right to choose. Elias still helped people, but he no longer helped out of fear that he would become useless if he said no. Some days he said yes. Some days he said no. And when he said no, something strange happened. People began to find their own way. They did not become weaker. They became stronger. And Elias did not lose his value. He simply found his peace again. If people only started respecting your time after you stepped back. Comment 2. One afternoon, Elias walked slowly along the trail leading out of town. A cold wind moved through the trees at the foot of the mountain. By the side of the road, he saw an old man resting. The old man held a worn wooden cane, and his eyes were calm, as if he had seen many things in life. Elias greeted him and sat beside him. After a few simple words, the old man looked at Elias and said, "You look like a man who has just learned an important lesson." Elias was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I was sick for weeks. During that time, I could not help anyone." The old man nodded. "And the town continued without you?" Elias froze. Not because the words were cruel, but because they were true. The old man reached down, picked up a small log, and placed it across the path. Then he said, "Step over it." Elias stood, stepped over the log, and turned back. "That wasn't difficult," he said. The old man nodded. "If this log stayed here every day, what would people do?" Elias looked at it for a moment and answered. They would learn to step over it. Or if it were too heavy, they would call each other and move it together. The old man smiled. Exactly. But if every time someone came near it, you rushed over and moved it out of the way, they would never learn that they could get past it themselves. Elias looked down at the log, and in that moment, he no longer saw a piece of wood. He saw everything he had done for other people. The fences, the wagons, the fallen woodsheds, the problems he had rushed to fix before anyone else even had the chance to try. The old man continued. When you always clear the path for others, they never learn how to walk their own road. They only learn to wait for you. Those words went straight to Elias's heart. He understood that not every log needed to be moved by him. Not every hardship in someone else's life was his responsibility. Sometimes the greatest help is not doing the work for people. Sometimes the greatest help is stepping back so they can grow. Before he left, the old man said one final thing. Sometimes your absence is the greatest lesson you can give. Then he walked away. Elias remained by the road, staring at the log. In the past, he would have moved it immediately. But this time, he did not. Time equals, quote, 0.8 seconds, quote / greater than. But this time, he did not. He left the log where it was. Not because he had become cold, but because he finally understood that some struggles have to be faced by the people who are meant to face them. But in that quiet moment, Elias understood something else too. People do not always take you for granted because they are cruel. Sometimes they treat you the way you have silently allowed them to treat you for too long. If you always say yes, they may forget that you have the right to say no. If you always show up immediately, they may forget that your time matters too. If you always smile when you are exhausted, they may believe you are never tired. The hardest lesson Elias learned was not how to blame others. It was how to set boundaries for himself. From that day on, he understood that kindness is not only about helping others. Kindness is also about being honest with yourself. If he was tired, he had the right to rest. If he was busy, he had the right to say no. If someone could do something on their own, he did not need to step in just to prove that he was useful. Because sometimes what drains you is not what people ask for. It is how long you stay silent when you should have said, "Not today." If you've ever had to step back, not because you stopped caring, but because you needed peace, comment 3. Many of us are like Elias. Always available, always answering, always helping, always trying to be the person everyone can depend on. But if you keep solving every problem for others, they may forget that they are responsible for their own lives. And you may forget that you were not born to carry everything for everyone. You can be kind and still have boundaries. You can love people and still say no. You can help others without losing your own peace. Do not confuse being needed with being valued. Some people only remember you when they have a problem, but disappear when you are the one who needs to be cared for. If someone only appreciates you when you are sacrificing yourself, they may not truly appreciate you. They may only appreciate the convenience you provide. But if someone still respects you when you say no, and still cares about you when you cannot help, that is someone worth keeping. So ask yourself, whose path are you always clearing? Are you helping them grow, or helping them stay dependent on you? Kindness does not mean always being available. Love does not mean carrying someone else's life for them. Not every problem is your responsibility. Not every cry for help requires your sacrifice. And not every log in the road needs to be moved by you. Your value is not measured by how much you can do for others. Your value is still there when you rest. It is still there when you say no. It is still there when you stop clearing the path for everyone else. Your presence is a gift. Give it to the people who truly appreciate it. Do not let it become the thing that drains you. If this story made you think about your own life, please hit like so this message can reach more people. Share this video with someone who has been giving too much of themselves to others. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that help you protect your peace, understand your worth, and live with a little more wisdom.